Hey everyone, on this week's Trade to Black podcast, we sit down with one of the savviest private equity investors worldwide who focuses on crypto, biotech, and longevity. Imagine the human body living to the age of 200 years old in the next 25 years. Sound far-fetched? Not so much for this guest. He's recruited some of the savviest accredited investors worldwide. Click now to learn more. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Trade to Black podcast. I am your host, Shadd Dales, and as usual, before we get to the podcast, all views of the Trade to Black podcast and the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests as investment advice, and the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Joining me, as usual, our lead financial writer, Benjamin A. Smith. Hope you had a great week. Ben, how are you?
Great, just soaking in the volatility in the market. We have Christian Angermayer on, so I'm in a good place right now.
Yeah, very good. We've been chasing this guy for probably the course of a year, but we finally have him on, our guest of the week in the middle. Christian Angermayer joins us. Christian, how's things?
Well, markets are stressful, but everything else is fine.
That's
maneuvering market.
That's for sure. Needless to say, what's your take on these markets right now? It's some people have heard say, I haven't seen this in years, which is the case, but being a savvy investor yourself that focuses particularly in private equity and biotech, tech, crypto, these are polarizing industries to say the least, but what's the take and how you've been handling this the last couple of weeks?
Practically everything which is out of favor. Well, I would say despite it makes me feel and look maybe very old, but I started my career in 1999.
Yep.
First company, we went actually public 2003. So I have this is which one you count as the big sort of bear markets, but I had the 2000, 2001, then bear market, then 2008,
Yep.
then in Europe we had 2012, then you had a little bit 2018, then COVID, so it's not the first time. It's meaning it is one of the most severe ones. What do I make of it? Let's start with the very good news, which is my personal takeaway. In 2000, 2001, when people looked at their portfolios, and again, I had my company, but I also had started investing in other companies. The venture industry, the investors had to admit in 2001 that they had financed and invested in companies in the boom, in the hype.
Yeah.
Which, when you then looked at it in a sober mode, they were not really functional. So there was a lot of BS. I was thinking I'm on an American show, I can't say the word. There was a lot of BS. Or at least, if I want to be friendly, there was a lot of business model financed in the .com boom, which were way too early. Actually, some of these models were not stupid, but then 10 years later they worked. And the good news is this is different now. If I look at just my portfolio, but we have in Apeiron, we have more than 100 portfolio companies. In the industries you mentioned, I'm happy, really happy with all of them. There is none where I'm waking up now and say, now that the market showed me, I would not do that. There is none. There's maybe some where I'm okay, I would like to adjust the valuation. But the companies are really good companies.
Interesting.
Who are producing stuff, who are making revenues, or who are doing science like ATAI, where they're moving forward. And that is for me the biggest difference to 2001, where people really woke up and said, holy shit,
right.
how just, So that's different. So it's a crisis of valuation, not of fundamentals. So if we come to the valuation, so yes, we have a new environment, interest rates will go up, so I'm giving a little bit the optimistic view, which, by the way, doesn't even mean that stocks will go up right away. So I think we're going to have, actually, this is then my last point, the rest of the year will not be better, but I think years to come.
It's funny you say this because we actually preach this every single week. There's so many industries that are actually huge growth potential right now where the market thesis does not add up to the business fundamentals. Ben, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I find it very interesting that you actually bring up the .com bubble in a way, and I do see some parallels with this with some of the biotech industry or the psychedelic biotech industry, insofar that maybe not all of the companies out there have models that are sustainable or have, NCEs that are patentable and differentiated in the future. But that being said, it's been a huge drawdown in biotech stocks. It's one of the biggest drawdowns that the XBI has ever seen. And with psychedelic companies, that's even a little bit more because they're even more on the risk curve of normal biotech. So in this environment,
They're not. They're not. I would say they're not.
oh no, please
Sorry,
explain.
finish your point, and then
If that comment is wrong, I'd
I
love to
would
hear
say,
about it.
first of all, I would say, but you pointed out the real problem. If you look at, I don't even like the word psychedelic industry because there is none. Yeah, in let's say in the biotech world, there is many. If you include like service industries, whatever, but like I would say there is a handful, not more, of legit biotech companies advancing psychedelics. Yeah, the rest is complete. And let me say the word because I'm annoyed because it's like definitely contributing part of the disturbance of bullshit. Yeah, which companies or ideas which were never viable and got funding a little bit, by the way, most of the companies are, even if they had something meaningful, which they don't, yeah, they would be completely underfunded because for biotech you need large amounts, you need in the hundreds of millions. Yeah, so there's just a handful of companies who have, as you said, real science, real patents, which you need because otherwise the money is not well spent. Yeah, and promising therapeutics in the psychedelic space, and have the capital and have the competence. There's another point. Do you have the management team which really knows how to do drug development? So when I look at all of these facets of what does make a good biotech company, there's just a handful. So the market is definitely a little bit disturbed, and even some very big institutional investors tell me that. They say, look, I see that ATAI Compass, that they not just better, that they're a completely different league, but it makes me nervous that I get 50 emails a day from small cap companies claiming they're also doing something in psychedelics. But the markets will wash that out because they never got enough funding, and now obviously the funding for that is gone. And then let's take ATAI. So I personally believe, by the way, it's for the entire. I don't want to just like let a sort of promote or shill ATAI, whatever. I'm just using it because I know the numbers, but I could tell you 50 other biotech stocks, not of my portfolio, like we have the same. So it's sort of there is a bunch of high quality biotech stocks which trade at cash or almost at cash. So ATAI has a market cap of somewhat like, I didn't check today, but like $650 million. However, we have $350 million cash, and we have a stake in Compass, which is round about $100 million worth. So round about ATAI has a net market cap, X cash, X Compass stake of $200 million. We have 9 late stage clinical trials. Not early stage, somewhat in the future. No, we have phase 1, 2, soon with Compass phase 3. We have then the largest pipeline. We don't even talk about it because others make a big deal out of it. But like we have by far the largest pipeline then additionally of early stage drug development for next generation psychedelics. But like if I just take the late stage ones, the 9, my point is in any environment, interest rates could go to 10%, which they won't, by the way. We can talk about my interest rate assumption, but like just theoretically speaking, and still a single drug which cures depression or significantly improves depression, which helps with addiction, a single drug will be worth some $1 billion. In any market environment. And we have 9 of them. So you might say now, then I'm done with my sort of feeling. You might say, oh, but
think about that. And I actually communicate this with my investors is that there are so many companies that we've spoken to that have one compound, one trial. That's it. And when I was speaking to Florian, he's talking about the cost of trials, diversification. We hear that, but actually are people following through? So when you look at the pipeline of ATAI, that's right. It's diversification, but that's a lot of money. Because if you have one compound, one trial that basically fails, what are you? And I think that's a lot of the misconception right now, to your point, as to why this industry has not been really built in the proper foundation and leaves only 1 to 2, maybe even max 3 companies that will have a long-term growth. So I absolutely 100% agree with what you're saying.
Good point.
And then, by the way, last point is then in a normal biotech company, you would say, well, if you have 9 candidates, maybe, I don't know, 3 is the average in neuroscience will come to an approval, yeah? Which already would be amazing because, as I said, every single one, once approved, is a multi-billion-dollar drug. So, and the additional sort of upside, which is completely not priced in, meaning it was not even priced in, by the way, was my opinion at our IPO, which was 5x from here, is that we know for our sort of clinical drugs, we know they work because we have these anecdotal evidence. So we know they save, in terms of anecdotal evidence. So we just, and it's a lot of work, we have to recreate this sort of anecdotal evidence in rigorous clinical trials, but different than with sort of 9 cancer drugs or whatever, you don't have that negative surprise risk. So while I can't promise anything, if I speak now not as the founder but as the investor, by the way, and I just increased my stake in ATAI,
you did.
my assumption is that we have a far superior success rate compared to industry average, not because we're sort of super duper smarter, but because we know so much already about these compounds. And if 6 or 7 or 8 or even 9 of them are making it to approval, we're really talking about a portfolio. And then again, still not talking about our early stage and still not talking about our digital therapeutics, but just the sort of first generation portfolio we have can be worth somewhere in double-digit billions in any environment, because we tackle the biggest problems of
So
healthcare
Christian,
technology.
was the diversification aspect early on one of the big reasons why Apeiron Investment Group invested in ATAI to begin with? Did you look sort of down the road and say, we're going to acquire, or ATAI is going to acquire all these companies, and they're going to have a lot more shots on goal in which to obtain clinical trial success than some of the other companies that you're looking at, the pitch decks, which only had 1 or maybe 2 trials potentially in the pipeline?
Yeah, it was sort of yes and no. Sort of no, because ATAI is really very special, and I'm more than the investor. I'm founder and investor, so I founded it and put in the majority of the money. It is this really unique. I can't stress it enough because it's not normal for biotech that at least for our first generation psychedelics, again, we know in anecdotal knowledge, but in millions of people using it anecdotally knowledge, that they work, and we know they save. So you could say that diversification was not needed in terms of, I mean, it's nice to have it, by the way, in terms to de-risk it, but I'm really very, very confident that most of our first generation psychedelic drugs will make it to approval because they deserve it, they work, and we have the best team to make no mistakes, in the execution, Nevertheless, diversification is always great, but my real motivation to build up this big pipeline is that what I just said, I really believe in the potential of these therapeutics, and every one of them deserves to be approved because the patients deserve to have access to them. That was sort of my motivation to have such a big pipeline, because it's really like, and it hopefully, because I don't want to sound arrogant, but I know what we're doing. I was able, with passion, capital, to assemble the best team, because it's not me. Like, I had the original idea. But you spoke to Florian. We have Srini, who's an amazing neuroscience guy, which is, by the way, important. Like, we have it's weird that I have to stress it, but because if I look at other companies, like, we have real neuroscience drug development guys who have done it before successfully with non-psychedelic drugs.
Real
because
data.
With real data. Because from a regulatory perspective, these are drugs like any other one. So we assembled the best team. We have this sort of strong conviction because of the anecdotal evidence. And we just need to execute. So that was sort of my driver for it.
Yeah, and I think, it will, I can say this till I'm blue in the face. The industry as a whole, I think, had some crazy expectations on how fast things move. But I think people are getting a real understanding as to what questions to ask when entering this space from an investment standpoint. and then looking at the timeline. And I think once that's met, these are a healthy investment. I can't think of getting in at the company like this at a entry point as to where it is right now. I do want to ask you, the market, needless to say, like we said, it's struggling right now. Why do you think biotech in particular has been hit hard more so than other industries over the past year or so?
I think in biotech, two things came together, meaning we spoke about interest rates. Again, by the way, in one sentence, my opinion, I think interest rates obviously are going up, but I think they will not go up as terribly as people fear now, because at some point, meaning we are about to slide into a recession, so which will cool things off. And additionally, I deeply believe, but that's also, I have to say, meaning sort of my framework of operating since 20 years. So tech and innovation in general is very deflationary. It might take a year or two till it kicks in, yeah. But like when people are now calling, oh, this is 70s reloaded, 10 years of stagflation, back then we didn't have these enormous speed of technological disruption. Doesn't mean that interest rates will not go up for a while, but I think we will soon see, quicker than we think, that they will not go up that much as people fear. Yeah. And by the way, 2%, even 3% interest rates are completely healthy. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're going to go higher, at all. I think they're going to, at the end up between 2 or 3%. And that is very healthy. And by the way, there are many, many times over the last 20 years when that was the case and biotech, tech was flourishing. Yeah. So it's just, we need to adjust it. People are, by the way, that's one of the fundamental health things, which I always use to explain it, but it's one important thing. Our mind loves continuity, and in a world where there's zero, that means when stock markets go up and everything looks great, our mind is predicting that's going to go on like that. And that's what we had a year ago. Yeah, everything was perfect, and we were like, that's what it's going to be forever. And obviously it's not. Yeah. So now we're the opposite. People are like, okay, now everything is shit. Yeah. And our mind is, again, because our mind loves continuity.
Right.
This up. And there is always change. So that's all. So I expect that this year we need to really vomit it out. Like this year is like, and people need to get their head around the new reality, but like then they want to realize the new reality is not that new, and like sort of, but I think this year is lost in terms of valuation and success, but you can build, and meaning ATAI, the end of this year will be better and more advanced than it was at the beginning of the year. And I think next year, sort of, this is my expectation, these growth sectors like biotech, tech will gradually come back.
Really?
So having said that is sort of somewhere, but maybe it's the second quarter, but somewhere, because you need humans also need a catalyst. What can the catalyst be? You deal in Ukraine. I'm not so optimistic that this is happening soon. It could be early that inflation sort of is going down quicker. I don't know. Like, I'm not want to be too optimistic. Yeah, and then you have actually end of year elections. That could be another sort of catalyst or trigger.
Play. Where are we?
But this year,
where are we in a year from now? I know that's a long time away, but if you had to look out,
I've written off this year. That's a short version. So then, to answer your previous question quickly, is like, why biotech so bad? So biotech had a huge run. Yeah. So the starting point to fall was just higher. Yeah. Then biotech and other sort of long dated success stories where sort of the cash flow is far in the future are more sensitive to interest rate fears. Yeah. So, but the combination of we were really, really the best asset class. Yeah. Then sort of the most hit one actually started, which is always then when it's the right time to buy, started a cycle of fund wind downs, forced sellers. Nobody's selling ATAI at 4. Because he or she has to sell, he or she wants to sell and sits there and say ATAI is not cheap. Like, no, everybody who sells any biotech stock, a good one at these levels, has to do it, doesn't want to do it. Yeah. And that is normally the last inning of a sort of vomiting cycle, where forced sellers are driving the prices down. And it seems that we found, both for ATAI and the entire biotech sort of world, sort of, but it seems, but again, you don't know. Like, but what I dare to say, if we look back in 2 years, 3 years from now, again, talking now about the entire industry, not just about my stocks, for these sectors, I believe that or is a great opportunity.
In 2 years from now, and we look at the prices of where this is at, I think people will be shocked to think where it was. Like, I can't believe an entry point as to where this company is. To your point, runway, cash, the amount of diversification, the people in place, the strategic investors that are involved, everything points to the right direction. But sometimes with these industries and specific companies within them, there's macro events that are uncontrollable. Ben, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I just find it interesting about Christian, your comments about interest rate cycle and it's particularly how investors, like, even if interest rates end up in between 2 and 3%, how investors have been so acclimatized to low zero bound interest rate levels that even 2 or 3% seems high. But that's really a normal occurrence in history, right? That those are still historically low levels. So I think once the market gets acclimatized to that new normal, which is really not that high to begin with historically, then we'll be better off. But on that vein, with those comments, we also understand that Aperion invests in fintech as well. You're best known for ATAI, investments in ATAI and Compass, but you also have fintech and crypto investments, particularly Crypto AG, which is the largest public trading holding company in blockchains in crypto assets. So I want to get your take on, along with the market carnage, the crypto carnage that has taken place, especially with things like stable coins, or what was previously thought to be stable, crashing through the $1 pegs, and where your views are on the crypto market, where DeFi is going forward.
Well, first of all, yeah. So, by the way, the real stable coins, like
good
Tether,
point. Real stable coin.
are stable. Yeah. So because they are stable coins, what we're talking about is that somebody, because it's not a trademark. Yeah, used the word stable coin, added, what was it called, algorithmic stable
Yes,
coin,
Terra Luna.
bullshit. Yeah. No, exactly. So I would say this was. You can't say. I think people are quickly saying this was a Ponzi scheme. I think it was not, because sort of the insanity was laid out. So they didn't do anything they did not say publicly they do. Yeah. It was just like, that is a typical dot-com boom thing. That's what I meant. It's like, this is something where people got carried away and thought it's going to work. And last week they found out, okay, I think this was the dumbest idea I've ever invested in. Yeah. And it suddenly becomes very crystal clear to you. But again, the good thing is that it's not happening in normal tech. This is like, maybe crypto or like some altcoins or projects, they are a little bit like that. Yeah. But let me tell you the good thing. The good thing was, there were like, what's it, the wrong number, but there were like 30, 40 billion of value wiped out in an industry which then, like some weeks ago, I think was a $3 trillion or market cap. Yeah. So this is comparably way bigger than Lehman Brothers was back then, in percentage wise, of the banking industry.
Wow.
So the incident in a relative perspective is way worse than Lehman was. And you don't, and that's good, you don't see the ripple effect. Why? Because the crypto industry, which is actually a strong positive sign of the resilience of the crypto industry, is more decentralized, is way more resilient, does not have actually the faults the traditional sort of interwoven banking system has. So we should actually say, I think, by the way, and I don't want to sound cynical, because people lost their money. Yeah, but like, I'm actually relieved how the industry absorbed that shock and is still there. Yeah, and is working. And there was no rescue package from the government needed. Yeah, there was no support needed. Yeah,
Good point.
The industry is managing out itself, and I think that will be long term is a very important positive data point for the industry. And the second one, which I'm also very really happy about, because I think it's a new generation of investors. Again, let's take the dot-com boom. Yeah, a lot of people who got burned in the dot-com boom turned around and were like, oh, the government needs to bail me out or needs to punish these people. So there was a lot of blaming going on. Yeah. And second, we lost an entire generation of retail investors, because they were like, I'm done with it. I don't want to touch stocks again. So now if you talk to young crypto traders, I'm actually very, very proud or really I have to acknowledge their responsibility. So you talk to 25-year-olds that look, okay, I have to realize I should have thought through better. It was all my fault. None of these kids is crying for the government. They're like, I knew it. Like Terra Luna did what they said they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. So they're like, they're taking responsibility.
They totally
But
are. I find that.
And they're believing in crypto still. They're saying,
Yes.
look, just because I made a mistake and I bet on the wrong project is not making the entire crypto industry bad. Yeah. And they're going on. And I think this is a super healthy development, which by the way, you even see in stocks. I have so many people who text me on Twitter and who are like, look, I unfortunately bought ATAI 10 and 12, whatever, and it went down. But I know that what you're doing is right and good. And I'm in it with you. Like while 2001, you would have gotten a lot of emails of people being mad at you. Like sort of, I think we have a new generation of retail investors who take responsibility, who believe in what they buy. Yeah. Which I think, by the way, in average, this was this famous Elon Musk. I do believe in average when you buy in what you believe and what you know, you're gonna make money. Yeah. But they're also willing to accept setbacks and they're willing to say, look, and here I made a mistake.
Great
And
point.
And that is very, very helpful.
And trust a decentralized financing system because the
Yeah.
blockchain doesn't lie, right? We saw a company this week, Ben and I covered the cannabis space, and a company that went public on the NASDAQ that has no revenue coming in for the next 2.5 years had suddenly a market cap bigger than any other multi-state operator in the US that was doing multi-billion dollars in sales. And when I look at a lot of these pump and dumps, this is where a lot of retail investors, especially when they got into the cannabis industry 6, 7 years ago, were obviously burned. But the biggest thing that I've learned through a lot of this younger generation is, yeah, they want to obviously make money, but it's a lifestyle. They're not looking at it the same way I would say even older generations are about greed. It's just a whole new way and a whole new lifestyle and being transparent and trusting, like I said, the decentralized system. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say a lifestyle, or even more, it's sort of they invest what they believe in. It's really like the sort of impersonification, or I would say,
philosophy.
of put your money philosophy, put your money where your mouth is. Like they are in that, and I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Now,
Last thing I wanted to ask you.
oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Ben.
I wanted to ask you too, Christian, just to get back to the wellness theme for a second. That we understand that you are conscious about maintaining an optimal lifestyle. You live by a happier, healthier, and longer mantra, and you have some investments in companies called Rejuveron, for example, that develop therapies to meet that sort of objective. Now, I want to ask, how does
Yep.
that fit into your whole psychedelics focus and your psychedelic portfolio with that mantra, and what sort of life extension and quality of life therapies should we expect in the future if everything goes according to plan?
All right. So first, like sort of, let's say, mental health and psychedelics on the one side, and longevity, simplified said, on the other side. For me, I like two sides of the same coin, two twin sisters, because like in the moment you're happy and healthy, you actually want to live sort of as long as possible. Yeah. And also living long does just make sense if you're happy. Like I think this is sort of, these are the two things. By the way, this will, again, I'm so positive about ATAI. Yeah, because we have the pipeline and we have the potential, and then our therapeutics ultimately have a total addressable market at ATAI, and the same for Rejuveron, yeah, which is still a private company, of 100% of the world population. Because like being happy and healthy and then live very long is what literally everybody wants. There was on Twitter, I saw some weeks ago, somebody with a lot of followers was asking how, if you can pick, you're either 80 and I don't know what he said, like 100 million or whatever, wealthy, or you're 20 and broke. Yeah, what do you want to be? And literally everybody, and by the way, you would say duh, but like it's important because what it says, by the way, that at the end you would give away all your fortune for some more healthy years. Yeah. So for me, like the longevity endeavor is also like I'm hopefully I'm building one of the biggest companies of the future. So what are we doing? We're working on developing real drugs, meaning drugs like real therapeutics, to slow down, reverse and then by that ultimately extend healthy human lifespan significantly. So it's not on reverse aging.
Wow.
So you might say this sounds very esoteric, but the good news is we, in the meantime, actually we, meaning scientific community, kind of agrees, which is, by the way, not normal, because years ago when I started the same, like with psychedelics, people were like, you were crazy, are crazy. But now people agree aging is a disease. And why this is so important is because we have a really good track record in, once we define something as a problem and as sort of something which is fixable,
Yeah.
it's just a question of time till we really fix it. Or my historical analogy is like, during the plague, there were people historically who said, it might be the rats, yeah, and the hygiene and whatever. But then the church said, no, it's a punishment of God. We have to suffer, and burned the ones who were close to the solution. Yeah, sort of, and it's not that bad. I didn't get burned 5 years ago, but 5 years ago we were like, no, you can't say that. Like, living forever, how arrogant is that, or how daring? Yeah. But we coming closer. Yeah.
Do you think COVID has changed that on how people look at things?
A bit. I think COVID in generally has shown also politicians how much people value health, which is, by the way, another reason why I believe biotech is such a crazily undervalued asset class. Yeah, because
Especially
like
when you have an
actually,
industry that's been dire straits for 40 plus years. That's the way I
yeah,
look at it. It's long overdue, and a lot of what's going on right now cannot last any longer. And I don't want to look at it as an opportunity, but that's exactly what it is for us to flourish and grow within this industry after a global pandemic, because I think we're now going to really start to see the effects of what this pandemic has provided or had an impact on society. Because a lot of people, as much as the world is opening up, they're struggling to actually go back to the way the world was prior to that. Do you find that in Germany at all, or what are you finding?
I'm living in London.
Or sorry, apologies, London.
No, but like that, I'm German. Like sort of. I mean, I think it's everywhere the same. Like, I think it really disrupted, not in a good way, a lot of our normal life, and we gradually need to all learn to get back to it. Like, I saw it when I went to a party, and I was like, oh, there are people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, and like, you need to train yourself that you don't see other people as a potential threat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And source of infection. Like, it's really crazy, by the way, if you think about it. How, and by the way, that's another reason for ATAI, because like, the number of mental health issues will explode. Like, we just see the tip of the
Yep.
iceberg at the moment of what COVID made it worse.
Do you find a lot of people in London are reevaluating their lifestyles? Like in major cities, let's say in North America, yes, you're starting to see things open up again, but the idea of working remote and virtual and the impact that will have on, like, say, real estate and stuff like that. I'd be curious to see, like, are a lot of people going back to the office or still working remotely, and their take on it, let's say in places like London, UK?
Very good question. I don't know the answer. What I know is, or my opinion is, that working from home is a very bad idea. Like, I'm very against it. I think we'll, unfortunately, that is sort of a little bit part of these. I don't want to say woke culture, but like, so CEOs don't dare to stand up and speak out and say, guys, like, it's a bad idea, both, and that is the point, both for performance. So I think this is one of the reasons why we have so many supply chain issues. Like, I'm waiting for a document from the Home Office here in the UK, so the Interior Ministry, since almost 12 months,
Wow.
and they are overloaded. 100%, it's the same number of people. They didn't fire 50% of their staff. 100%, the fact that they're not able to process things in 12 months, yeah, is that the people working at home are doing just less of a job. It's
Interesting.
100%. And now it's very politically incorrect, because when it's weird that it's, maybe some people would say it's politically incorrect to talk about it. People should go back to the office because you are more productive in the office. Yeah. And yes, there's always the one exemption, but like, it's my belief. But second, and it's equally important, it's really bad, especially for young people. I can sit at home because everybody's taking my call of my colleagues. They're all adjusting to me. Yeah. And I do think I have a little bit of experience. Yeah. But I want my younger colleagues who are working for us, I want them to learn. I want them to literally look over the shoulder of the and do
That's a good
things.
point.
And sitting at home by dialing into some Zoom calls, this is not how you develop as a human being, both professionally and as a human being. We need other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we should have a social life. Yeah. So I think it's a completely wrong turn society took with these working at home.
Good point.
And I do hope we're gonna realize that sooner than later.
Hopefully we can work through these issues. Now, the last question on my end, because I'm very fascinated with life extension and healthy lifestyles. The same topics that interest you, is in this lifetime, like within say the next 25 years, 20 to 30 years. Do you think technologies will be developed for the mainstream that will allow people to live to have meaningful life extension to say 120 years old or 140 years old, and to live with people living a productive life at that level? Do you think that will happen, say by 2040 or 2050 on Earth?
Yes. The
Wow.
short answer, yes. It's our generation. This is why my simple phone was like, and you, by the way, you picked the right time frame. So I think the real stuff, which then will lead to pushing our life expectancy. By the way, it's our 100. It's not going to happen on one day. There's no jump. So we're not going to wake up and there will be an announcement saying, oh, now you live to 120. But it's going to be a gradual push. But what I believe that in round about 20 years, maybe 15, maybe 25, yeah, we're going to have these 1 year where we win more average life expectancy than the 1 year we lost. And then that's the point when every bets are on, because like then we potentially can live forever if we win more than if we win more than 1 year per year. Yeah. And that's going to come the next 20 years. So having said that, I'm always saying, like, for all the viewers, like, don't die the next 20 years. It sounds like, and people laugh, but like, it's really the most stupid time to die, because you're right in front, or you have the potential right in front of you. Yeah. And this is why I'm so obsessed with a healthy lifestyle, because like there is nothing today which will make me live to 100 or more. Yeah. But there is many things people can do already now, both from a lifestyle perspective, from a supplement perspective, to increase the probability that they're still there. Because if you look at me, I'm 44, so if you look at me, you would say, hey, statistically, I'm still there in 20 years, because my life expectancy is already more than 80. But unfortunately, statistics is a bitch. Like if you look at the famous bell curve, yeah, so round about at 40, the risk starts rising. So it's not 100% given. If I would talk to my 12-year-old godson, if he doesn't have an accident, he's gonna be there in 20 years. Yeah, I need to be a little bit more cautious. But the good thing is, if there's two things I need to be cautious of: cardiovascular diseases, so heart attack or stroke, or cancer. If I don't have one or the other, the likelihood that I'm still there in 20 years is really very, very high. So my whole regime is focused on not getting a cardiovascular disease and not getting cancer. So what can you do? But I promise it always in every podcast. I will do it, that I put down everything. I already have it, actually. I just need to finish it and publish it, because like I take 40 supplements a day, so there's a lot. But like there is these 5-6 things which
40 supplements a day.
Yes.
You topped me by about 33.
But the good thing is that it's like these typical 80-20 rules. There are 4, 5, 6 things which are the most important one, and they give you 80%, and then the rest is almost like like icing on the cake. So what is the most important thing? The number one is sleep. Yeah.
Yes.
You have to sleep properly, long enough, good enough. Yeah. And we're the only species on this planet who has a tool every night which is really preventing a lot of stuff, from Alzheimer's to giving us a great immune system so that we can fight a lot of stuff. And we're the only species which is cutting the most important vital function of our body short. Yeah. So one of the biggest luxury things I'm doing is, like, I try not to wake up with an alarm clock, meaning my assistants try not to make any meetings before 10 a.m. Doesn't mean that I sleep till 10 a.m., but then I will have emails anyway. I can do calls spontaneously, but like I'm waking up naturally when my body wants to wake up. Yeah. So if I had a sleep deficiency, I could catch up. So that's one thing.
Good.
The other one is mild exercise. You don't need to be an athlete. Actually, too much is also even not healthy from a longevity point of view. But like 3 times a year, a little bit of cardio, a little bit of gym training, very healthy. Then fasting is great. I do the 16-hour fasting. Meaning little sugar, like the whole sugar is very bad. Sugar and cheap carbs. I mean, these are the main things, and then you can go into supplements, metformin, vitamin D.
You know what? You bring up a good point, because a lot of people don't understand about the exercise thing. Because from my understanding, if you actually exercise too hard, you put a lot of oxidative stress on the body and on the cardiovascular system, and that could actually lower your lifespans. Like there's a lot of marathon runners who their heart just gives out at like 65 or 70 because they put so much stress on it. Right? People don't understand that. You want light cardiovascular, not necessarily all out.
Yeah.
Listen, this has been fascinating. I hope that we can have you on continuous. But, next one, I'd like to get more stories of you and Lars and some of the stories that you guys have put together. But great, obviously, creative minds, to say the least. And I applaud everything that you're doing and everybody on your team because, the world needs, obviously, more answers and opportunities, I should say, when it comes to mental health. And I think it's really encouraging to see some of the things that you're focusing on and developing for the world. But listen, please keep in touch. We'd love to have you back on.
And pleasure. Love to come on again.
This has been great. And I'm not going to dispute somebody who's taken 40 supplements because you're 44 and I don't see a wrinkle on your face. So who am I?
Thank you. Like I try to hold up.
Who am I to judge, right? But anyways, you look great. You sound great, even though that's some interesting times. But we appreciate it again, and let's keep in touch.
Okay, thanks you, and happy weekend.
Thanks, Christian. Everyone, thanks for watching. We appreciate you giving this video a thumbs up. We also value your feedback, so leave a comment below. And if you like what we do, then share this video on your socials. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and tap on that bell to receive notifications for all future videos that we post. Thanks for watching.